Hey there, Intelligent Automation community. Welcome back to the second part of the video for today. If you haven't seen part one, make sure to click the link in one of the corners up above. I can't remember which one with the camera flipped that way, but click those because you're going to have no context for this. Also, let me know if you like these videos being broken down into smaller bits like this. First time I'm doing that. Don't know if this is better than kind of the longer form videos out there. So, as I was mentioning at the end of part one, the two analyst reports that came out this past week are dramatically different from each other on how they rank and profile each one of the RPA technology vendors. And we'll see more analyst reports come out over the next several months, so it might be useful to understand, in general, comparatively, how these analyst reports are ranking each vendor. So generally in 2021, we're finding about four main categories where each vendor is ranked. First off, the easiest one, and hopefully every analyst is bringing this into account, is voice of the customer. Surveying customers, peer reviews, are the vendors doing what they're saying they're doing? How happy are you with that vendor? What sort of outcomes are you accomplishing? That's a big one. Second one gets a little interesting, which is the execution of that vendor. Now, that will be very different depending on which analyst report that you're looking at. One analyst may say, well, vendor A, a year ago you told us that you were going to build spaceships, and instead you turned around and built submarines over the past year. Well, your execution to your plan is not very good. You said you were going to do one thing and did something very, very different. So you can get low marks on that. Other analysts will turn around and say, well, as an analyst firm, we believe that every vendor in the space should be building spaceships, and you instead, Mr. Vendor, chose to build submarines. Well, so we're going to mark you points because you didn't build spaceships like we think everybody should be building spaceships. So that gets a little interesting. You got to get into the narrative to figure out, did you want a spaceship or did you want a submarine as a customer? Part two, or I guess three if I'm losing count at this point, part three is around innovation, and this is where the technology vendors, storytellers become critical. The innovation category has to do with the narrative the vendor gives around their roadmap, and particularly where they want to go at some point in the future. Doesn't mean that they're getting to that point in 6 months, doesn't mean they're getting to that point in 2 years from an innovation perspective, but where ideally at some point in the future they want to go, and this is where you'll start to see a lot of introduction of the Silicon Valley technology buzzword bingo. But again, storytellers, innovation. The last part, which is somewhat new in 2021, started to see it in maybe late 2019, early 2020 that's been introduced, are the capabilities of the vendor outside of the RPA space, which I find a little bit funny. We're talking about a analyst ranking around RPA technologies, but we're grading them based off of all the things they do outside of the RPA space. And I think that's kind of the early culmination of where you'll find there's not a lot of reports, for example, today on OCR and ICR technologies, because those technology vendors expanded into all sorts of other areas, and maybe we're seeing the early stage of that with RPA technology vendors. But this category of what are all the things you do outside of RPA are the reason why you find companies like Microsoft and SAP and the various different BPM technology providers that are ranked very, very high, at least in this category, even though RPA is a fraction of a sliver of a part of what they do as a company. So, check it out. Now, I already lightly touched on this, but to hit it in again, the largest wrapper around any of these reports has to do with whether the analyst aligns with the point of view of the vendor that they're reviewing. So, for example, an analyst that believes that every employee should be independently building automations for personal tasks is not going to favorably rank a technology vendor that believes that automation should be more of a top-down enterprise initiative that's centrally governed. Two dramatically different approaches. My suggestion is that on any analyst report, independent of the industry, that you always go down and read the narrative that's written up in each one of the reports. What's funny is you'll tend to notice that the graphic on the front page of the report tends to disagree with the written narrative, but probably more important than that is you need to probably understand, is the analyst's point of view on their ranking criteria aligned with your goals as a company, as a COE, as a individual contributor? Who knows? But again, read the narrative, understand if that technology is actually high or low on your list based off of what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so that's enough on the sport of intelligent automation, marketing, and industry analyst reports.
With the knowledge you've been given, you are now on the inside of what I like to call the Burns family circle of trust.
So, if you want to check out some of the upcoming events over the next couple weeks that may provide you tips and tricks to improve the quality of your intelligent automation program, let's jump into it. First off, let's start on the other side of the world. For me, if you can tell, I do not have an Australian accent, but on March 30th at 1 o'clock p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Reveal Group will be sharing how their solution, RoboSuite, can perform quality and build reviews of your automations. Directly from my experience, this is probably one of my favorite technologies in the complementary to RPA space, in that it can expedite delivery pipelines for both citizen-led and enterprise-led automation programs, as you can feed in your release files and it will automatically scan through for build standards. This is really, really cool stuff. By the way, FM Global is presenting on this webinar with Reveal Group. If you're in the US and you want to check out the webinar, it's running live, I guess technically at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on March 29th, but I'm sure if you sign up, there's going to be a recording as well. Also, kind of in the same day, on March 30th, but at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, the Blue Prism community team is hosting an Ask Me Anything session on benefits visualization and reporting. Now, I don't know if I just completely missed these for a while, maybe they've been going on for a bit, but I really like this format. Basically, there is a sign-up link, which you'll find down below, and when you jump into that, there is an open thread on this topic, which, again, benefits visualization and reporting. And in that thread, you can ask various different questions to the development team of the Blue Prism platform itself. There looks like they're going to try and answer a lot of those questions in advance, but anything they don't get to or anything that needs to be asked live, they'll be on again at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on that link on March 30th, and you can ask those questions live. If you caught my last video on robotics as a service, and I'll put links to that in one of the corners up there, but if you caught that video, then you're already familiar with Invoke, which offers a cloud-based automation as a service platform, also known as ARIA. Now, in that video, we did not discuss specific customer use cases, site-specific customer examples, but on April 8th at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Johnny Ramondino from Invoke and Tim Wilson, who is the director of the customer supply chain at Morton Salt, are going to be sharing how Morton Salt, big surprise, Morton Salt is automating SAP-based supply chain work, which is leading to reduced order entry time, reduced errors, reduced costs, and overall improving employee engagement. So I'll put links to that, again, 11 o'clock Eastern Time on April 8th. On the evening of April 8th, I'm also hosting a Zoom call with EY on the topic of internal controls and audit. Now, most of my day job has to do with working with extremely highly regulated customers in the healthcare, defense, and utilities space. So naturally, audit and controls and internal governance is a major part of that work that I do. So it comes up quite a lot. Of course, you have to strike a balance between over auditing, adding too much governance, too much control, which dramatically slows down your delivery pipeline and upgrade strategies and a lot of things related to that. But you also maybe don't want to go the complete reverse direction on being extremely fast and loose with everything and potentially putting a company at risk, particularly when you're dealing with things like PII, PHI, GXP regulated data, ITAR regulated data, what have you. A little critical to have that under control. So these Zoom calls are usually a closed-door customer workshop group, but if you want to learn more about this topic, let me know. Maybe I can repeat that topic for an external webinar, maybe one of these videos, so it's more publicly consumable. So let me know. Finally, if you're interested in the topic of citizen development, and I think that's everybody in this industry right now, make sure to tune in to the next video that I post, which will include an interview with RPA developer Kevin Wilson. Kevin was able to help me with a personal automation that I was trying to build last month, and I think that his feedback, his takeaway, will probably help anybody that's looking to get into UI-based automation with folks that do not come from a historically extremely technical or particularly coding background, which is definitely not me. I just play a technical person here on TV. So wrapping up, let me move out of the way to here, so hopefully I can put a link or so on YouTube. But wrapping up, hopefully you found my point of view on the topics both in this video and the first one today to be beneficial. Of course, my background, my history, what I do right now leads to those points of view, and yours might be a bit different. Love to hear if you have a conflicting point of view. Message me, put a comment down below. Love to hear from you. As always, I will put a link to everything that I've discussed in this video and the previous one down in the first comments below, so check those out. And as always, look forward to seeing you next time on here. Stay safe, intelligent automation community.